Hi everyone, welcome to Murphy's Law Garage. Today I'm here with my buddy and we're going to show you how to replace these stock Ford studs with some ARP ones that probably won't break when your axles decide to multiple times.
Dang it.
Alright, so clearly, obviously here, back of the car is jacked up, wheels are off. Here are our wheel studs. Now, those of you who follow our channel know that we've broken the axles multiple times. They were stock. Now it's got some G-Force Renegades in the car. We need to, for one, I need to back this nut back off again, put some Loctite on it and send it back in again to 200 foot-pounds, but we also need to follow the chain of things that are going to break next. Now my Race Star wheels have fully supported shank lug nuts, which means the lug nut goes all the way down here, and you can see the history of the threads here and really supports the stud well. But that doesn't mean it's going to survive. It'll end up snapping off, especially since this thing's going down the track 100 or more times. It'll end up snapping off right here regardless, and that can be pretty catastrophic. We don't want that. So I'm going to try to find the minimal point of entry for getting these out and getting the new studs in. They're definitely not just going to sneak out of here, from what I can tell from other photos I've seen. So what I'm going to move on to next is I'm going to take the caliper and the disc off and out of our way, and then we're going to look at it. We're for sure going to be able to hit these studs and loosen them. We may just have to loosen the hub so that it'll angle up and out the way a bit so that we can slip the studs out. Let's figure that out. All right, so once you've got the caliper off, that's two 18mm bolts. You can disconnect the parking brake harness and just slip it up under the subframe right here. It'll hold on to that motor nicely. Once you've got that off, the brake rotor can come off, and that's out of your way. Now, the next thing you need to do is take this brake shield off. It is 1, 2, 3 8mm bolts. I'll get out of our way, and we're going to knock one of these studs out. I think this one right here, and see if it'll sneak out past the hub right here. Not looking great for getting to these bolts right here without taking out my half shafts, because the G-Force ones are much larger and they're kind of blocking access to the bolts. Well, my helper and I have been contemplating this for a while. See, I've got all of the studs knocked loose while it's easy. None of these come close to clearing, except for this one guy right here. You can see is like just a couple of thousandths away from slipping past this lip on the aluminum knuckle. In fact, it's so tempting to get out a flap disc and clean this area up to see if this would possibly actually sneak out of here. But I've got a bad feeling that the ARP stud, which is longer than this, even if I did clearance this, probably would not want to get in here. I'd have to take a good bit of material off of this. Still very, very, very tempting. Just to make stud replacement easier, though. How often do you really do this? You can get a socket on this in here. I'd need some specialty sockets, though. I'd need some shallow sockets and just the perfect wobble to get on this guy right here, because the knuckle is in the way right here and right here for these two. Because what I was hoping I could do, because I can clearly get onto these two bolts here that hold the bearing on, and back those off. I was hoping I could loosen these and then get the hub to twist and then angle a lug out, a stud out. I'm going to try one more time to get something on this, but if that doesn't work, then we'll have no choice but to break the axle nut loose and these two upper links so that I can fold the knuckle forward and back the axle out of my way just enough to get a socket in there. Okay. So it is possible to get a relatively normal short socket on here, though. Also, these are some Harbor Freight ones. I've got a Craftsman that's about an 1/8 inch shorter than this that is currently just chilling in here. Loosen the axle nut and push the axle in. It'll actually go back a good bit. And then you can loosen these up And then when you get them far enough out, you just back them out enough that you can get some room over here by this guy. And then here's the stock stud. Will the longer one go in like that? Probably not. I'm probably gonna have to back this out a little bit further, but the good news is it is possible to do without fully disassembling all of this crap. Now, in the amount of time it's taken me to finagle with this and figure that out, I probably could have just taken the links apart and folded it all away, but for the sake of saving you some time, this is possible by just sneaking in from the back. Oh, the 1/2 inch longers don't want to go in. Let me back these bolts out a little further and hopefully it'll just sneak past that aluminum so that it can turn that corner. All right, and if you back these bolts out until they're almost about to fall out of there, oh, let me find the hole. They'll slip right in. Now, you might be asking yourself, hey, where's the speed nubs on these? Because the rest of them have speed nubs. Well, let me go show you why. So the specific ones I have here are 1/2 inch over, and they have the speed nubs. I don't know if there's a part number that doesn't include the speed nubs, but I want it to be able to use my Gorilla lugs and not have a bunch of crazy different lug nuts set up to make this work while still having extra thread engagement. So the speed nut, the speed nub they call it, which makes it easier to start the nut, is gone, and I just lopped that off with a cutting wheel and cleaned it up. So I need to do the rest of these to do the back of the car. All right, and just like that, the speed nub is missing. They're slightly lighter, and I can still use my standard extended closed-ended lug nuts on my F14s. Now, to put these guys in, I'm going to be using a stud tool. These are pretty cheap on Amazon, dime a dozen, couple of bucks. Comes with different lug nuts for different sizes and the bearing tool that helps guide it in without putting a bunch of stress on the stud. So let's go get these driven. All right, and you put your new stud in with the stud driver tool. Now you could do this with some old nuts and a bunch of washers and some lube. Just buy the tool. It's a few bucks. Pick it up in your toolbox. Make sure you put the flat spot facing the bearing side so that it clears the bearing surface there of the hub. And no mystery here. I'm going to rotate this one at a time, push it out, put a new one in, tighten them up, and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, we're almost done here, but I wanted to show you how this tool works. It's a sleeve with a bearing in it. The sleeve moves independent of the bearing that's touching the hub face. And then it's got a conical surface that the lug nut they provide goes into. And as you twist, as you twist, the whole thing moves, but that bearing, that bearing that's inside of this sleeve is pressed up against the hub and not moving. And as you tighten, let's see if I can catch that. It's going to pull the stud in. You're going to keep going, of course, until it's nice and flush, just like the rest of these are.
That's correct.
All right, and just like that, all of the new longer studs are in. You take a second here to appreciate just how much longer they are. These are a 1/2 inch over. Obviously that's a 1/2 inch, but they look so much longer. Like I said, but if you leave that stub here, it's a solid extra 1/4 inch on top of that. So you end up with gaining 3/4 inches of length. I don't know if there's a part number that doesn't have the speed stub, but whatever. Ground it off. It's a little lighter. They fit. Now all of this goes back together in reverse order. I'm gonna tighten these bolts up to suck the hub back in. And then I'm gonna put some Loctite on mine now. This is an aftermarket axle, so there's a different procedure for torquing this. I think you go to something like 90 foot-pounds and then so many degrees of a turn. Google that if you're doing your stock half shafts. Though if you're doing this and you have stock half shafts, you've messed up. Stop and replace your half shafts. These G-forces, the spec is 200 foot-pounds, so I'm gonna end up putting some blue Loctite all over these threads and going to 200 foot-pounds, and that prevents this from attempting to back off after multiple launches. Really nothing else mysterious to talk about here. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat the process on the other side, and then we'll be able to bolt our wheels back on. Make sure you clean the oil. I was using WD-40, just any light oil, to lubricate the threads and that bearing. It's got grease in it, but even where the nut touches the conical surface, you need some sort of lubricant. So I've got a little grease, and I was actively wetting it with WD-40 to keep it from chewing up the threads or damaging the tool. So get you some brake clean. Threads should be dry on lug studs. It acts like Loctite. It ensures that you have the proper torque spec. You keep these things clean and dry and torque to spec. If they're wet, you'll over torque them. You got to compensate for that, and they're much more likely to attract gunk and get damaged that way. Dry, 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 and clean. All right, and just like that, it's all back together. And now I can put it back together with my street wheels. All right, and just like that, the street wheels and tires are back on. You can see just how much more proud this sticks out compared to what was there before. It was basically flush with the face of the wheel, which had good engagement because I have these shanked lug nuts from Gorilla, but now we're gonna go way, way deeper in there. All right, y'all, and just like that, I've got the wheel back on. Now I need to go do the other side, but it's an exact replica of what you just saw me do here. It's not too bad. Probably only take me 30 minutes to do the other side now that I understand the best way to sneak it in. And now I have some added security that instead of breaking an axle, I'm not gonna break wheel studs and destroy a fender. So not too bad, y'all, take it on.